Hi there everyone, and welcome to the final video in this series on the 5 keys of masculine spiritual initiation. Obviously, if you haven't seen the first 4 videos, please do go back and watch them. They're all part of a playlist. But suffice to say, for those who have, we've explored the journey of letting go of our earthly self, dying to what we are, and then being reborn in a truer, earthier sense of self, where we let go of our own control and then let the universe, God, life, whatever language you prefer, really dictate to us what we truly are. Then we can start to understand that in our own way through the great masculine archetypes we spoke about last time: King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. And now I want to end this little series on the notion of pure being, or non-rational being as it's sometimes known. Now, when I say non-rational being, don't think that means I'm rejecting the rational, or I think it doesn't have any worth. Evidently, a rational worldview is very, very valuable. It's excellent for practically thinking about the world. It's wonderful for creating all manner of things, from bridges to computers to a book. We need to have that rational part of ourselves intact. But at the same time, we need to be aware that modern man has got lost in himself. He's become egocentric, self-centered. And this is why we have such faith in this day and age in rationality. You won't really see that challenge unless you get into deep philosophy or spirituality, where one of the first things you learn is it's a bit irrational to claim rationality in what is an irrational universe, i.e. we don't know why we're here or what we're for. That's irrational, yet we claim rationality as the core dimension, if you like, of what it means to be human. Again, not that rationality doesn't matter, it just needs to be ordered correctly. And this is what we mean by non-rational being. It's what Christ calls the peace that passes all understanding. We're not going to intellectually figure it all out. It's about letting go and realizing our own limitations. The human mind cannot understand the true depth of being, the true depth of the universe, but we can align with it and listen to that voiceless voice, the deeper wisdom to guide us. Now, I've been exploring the work of Robert Moore a lot. As I've said, I think he's probably the top guy when it comes to the archetypes around initiation in the 20th century. And he's got a lovely quote here. When you become overly intellectual in analysing yourself, you may be distancing like mad from your true self. We should never depreciate the analysis of these materials. It is good for you to be reflective about your issues and think about them. On the other hand, when you find yourself being coldly analytical, underline coldly here, you may be splitting off from your true self. The true self radiates both affection and rage. Now, really nicely put there. And again, I think he's making the same point that I am. It's fine to be analytical. It's fine to have the rational mind, and we can appreciate that. But we need to be aware that our intellect isn't blocking our deeper essence. You are not your mind, to put it simply. Eckhart Tolle has a really nice line here that thinking needs consciousness to exist, but consciousness doesn't need thinking. And that's true. Remember, consciousness, life, was here before human thinking started. So the point that we're really trying to drill down on here is being aware of this overly intellectual capacity that we can have as modern men. And we see it everywhere. You know, the man lost in his mind. You know, maybe I even think Jordan Peterson might be an example of that, constantly thinking about everything rather than letting go. And you can't blame people for that, because thinking in our world will get you, status, celebration, money, and so on. And that's all fine on one level. But what we really want to move towards is true understanding of who and what we are, which is beyond the mind. Now, Moore has a really nice line here in a Christian context about what that means. He states, for a Christian, the self, with a capital S, remember, not the small self, you'll know what I mean if you watch the prior videos, from a psychological point of view, parallels the guidance of the Holy Spirit or the action of God in your life. So what he's talking to here, again, the self is the pure being aspect. It's not the small self, Richard, with his ideas and his rational thinking. It's a deeper wisdom. And you might say, well, how on earth do I listen to that? Well, again, review the videos prior to this. But secondly, he has a really nice line here. We do not say, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown, but rather, I wonder what this message from the unconscious is that I need to confront when I get the courage. Isn't that a beautiful way of thinking about the dramas that come into your life? Not, oh my God, I'm losing it. Not, I'm feeling anxious or frightened or angry or scared or whatever else it may well be. What is the message that the true self needs to tell me here? And if I can get out of my own way, as in the ego, the small self out of the way, of I don't want to feel this, or I'm too good for this, or I'm too clever, or I'm too rational, whatever else it may well be, then we will be getting very, very deep messages that will naturally and necessarily lead to our spiritual evolution. That's why I say in lots of these videos, we should always welcome challenge, whether it comes in the form of breakdowns, bereavements, addictions, pains, breakups, whatever it is that's really got to you, it always provides a challenge to open you up. Because when we've been wounded, we're much more likely to be humbled. And of course, that can go the wrong way, and it does with many people. But if we treat it correctly, if we have the right guidance, it can be an aperture through which a much stronger light comes in. And once we really go through that, we see the fundamental crack is in all things we see and exist. That's why Leonard Cohen, the Canadian poet, famously said there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Similar to Rumi's phrase, the Sufi poet 1,000 years before, the wound is where the light gets in. Now, these are fundamentally important spiritual teachings. In order to get there, we have to have let go of our reliance on our mind. And that's hard for many of us because the whole culture is telling us to trust our mind. And very often we'll only start to loose that if we've been through challenge. And then we really will start to lean on the divine, or life if you prefer simpler language. And when we do that, we will see that we're completely held at all times. We're safe everywhere. It's why Moore says later on in his work on initiation, until you get to where you believe that God can stand for you to manifest your shadow in God's presence, then your God is really not good enough mother or father. And that's a really nice line. God becomes the true parent. We reveal ourselves and our totality to what is, and we're guided by that energy, that universal energy of what is ultimately love. But remember, we're not talking about Hollywood love, everything's sweetness and cuddles and kittens. Love can sometimes be destroying. It can be hard to endure, but it's really breaking us down till we realize the true nature of things. This is why Christ famously said, although I would argue very often misunderstood in what he was trying to say, do not think that I have come to bring peace to the world. No, I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. I came to set sons against their fathers, daughters against their mothers, daughters-in-law against their mothers-in-law. Your worst enemies will be the members of your own family. Now again, a lot of people want to ignore that teaching from Christ. Or maybe a lot of atheist types who don't really get what Christ is saying will point it and say, look, how evil is that? What a horrible thing to want to do. But when we understand this with the spiritual key of small self and big self, we can see that what Christ is doing here is laying out what's going to happen to the people who recognize their true fatherhood, and that's God. And when he says, do not think I have come to bring peace to the world, he's talking about the world, not the spirit, which is your true nature. And the world will always argue with you, no matter what. You could have the cure for cancer and someone will argue with you. That's the nature of the world. So when he says, do not think I have come to bring peace to the world, he's saying, don't expect the world to be perfect. You go through this spiritual journey, it doesn't mean that all war is going to stop and you're never going to have an argument again and you're going to breeze through life perfectly with everything just, like Neo in the Matrix, just hitting off you or you're dodging it all. That's not real life. You will be wounded, you will be hurt, and that's all right. That's the nature of the world. We take solace in our true nature in God the Father. And this is what he means. This will set us against even those closest to us. And we've probably all had that experience already when we have a disagreement or something. Now, the point here isn't to say, I'm right and my sister or my father or my mother or my cousin is wrong. That's not what we're saying. It's more a deeper spiritual understanding of how some people are going to buy into this message and others aren't. And that is just the way of the world and always will be. And you can't force people to get this stuff. I'd love it to be able to share some of this stuff with my family, but I know I can't. It's just not their interest and it doesn't have to be. Leave them to it. It's absolutely fine. But this is what it means by splitting families and close people up, because your roots will be grasping a new soil at that point. And again, this doesn't mean fall out with these people or hate them. By all means, love them. But you just have to understand that they're going to see you and see the world through the eyes of the world. And that's all right. That's okay. That's their life. The point is that we come in to that true nature, true essence of what we are. And again, to be clear, when we speak about pure being, yes, it's a recognition that we have God's being, our animating forces from God himself. Who else could it be from? It's the one God who gives life to all. However, we're still going to manifest separately. We're still going to have our separate struggles in life. We still might get lost in the mind from time to time. All these things are all right. They're all part of the Christian journey, no matter how advanced we are. The difference is we understand all the more what's happening and when we become unconscious. What this means for us as men is we're completely out of our own way. We're being evolved into what we truly are. Just like the flower grows. The flower just grows because it does, because it is, because it's its nature. Well, it's the same with you. It's your nature to evolve. But our darkness, our ego, our fallen state gets in the way of us and blocks us from being who and what we truly are, both in the form of our spiritual essence, but also in what we manifest as well. So I hope this series was of some interest to you and you've enjoyed it. Do let me know your thoughts down below. Do join me on the Substack as well for the free calls. And if anybody is really interested in taking the next step, I will be holding a call soon about the group work I'm doing, the 7 steps, which is really all of this times by 100. It's very deep work, it's very powerful, and I advise that you reach out to me or check out the stuff on the Substack and let me know your thoughts about it. Other than that, please do like, share and subscribe, and thank you very much for watching this series. God bless you.